Thank you again and welcome to uh, AWS User Group Dubai Meetup. Hopefully with this kickoff we can make more and more sessions with bigger audience hopefully in the next time. So I'm gonna introduce myself and then I'm gonna jump to what are we going to cover during this session. We will be discussing Microsoft workloads on AWS. I'm Ali Al-Kontar. I'm founder and CEO of Zero&One, 10 times AWS certified and APN ambassador, currently the only ambassador in the region. Hopefully, this user group will generate and lead more APN ambassadors in the coming period. And I'm myself an AWS authorized instructor. Um, um, who's Zero&One? Just a short introduction. So Zero&One is an advanced consulting partner. So we've been doing only AWS since 2017, achieved a lot of technical validation from AWS, whether it's DevOps, well architected, or even DynamoDB service delivery. Um, Based in UAE, we have our kitchen and team in Lebanon, and we are opening in KSA this month. The agenda of today, what I'm gonna be covering is why AWS on Microsoft workloads. Yes, AWS can run, and we will talk about why. So to remove some confusions, and what are the common services that you will need to run your Microsoft workloads. And this is very interesting topic for everyone and challenging. Understanding licensing on AWS for Microsoft workloads, whether it's database or other things, and what are the common migration tools that you can use, whether you're moving from other cloud or from on-prem. And the last step is always like we always recommend or talk about modernization, how you can unlock yourself from licensing and how you can build more native applications. Um, the first section will be why AWS for Microsoft workloads. Let's start with some numbers. I love numbers, who doesn't? So those are some of the numbers, like according to third-party reports. I'm talking about IDC, that AWS has 7 times better uptime and reliability across the nearest and largest cloud provider. They offer, they've been running like for more than decade, almost 12 years of Windows servers instances on AWS. So technically, as the AWS leadership always say, there is no compression algorithm for experience. So this is where this falls. So, and then from the variety and choices of services, you can go now. AWS offers 200 plus services on their cloud, and 2 times better performance. So for SQL database, this is also a third-party study and test versus running SQL on Azure. And you know that given the customer obsession from the top values of AWS, you know that 72 price reductions happened since 2006. And yes, those are some of the numbers. So you can select from a number of Windows Server versions, including the latest version, Windows 2019, and even if you need to build and run Windows application, including Active Directory, .NET, System Center, or Microsoft SQL, even Visual Studio, everything can be either managed natively through some services that we will cover, or even built on top of EC2. So there is a very broad and deeper functionality available. So AWS offers a far broader selection of services along with much deeper functionality, with most of these services that any other cloud provider can currently now offers. So AWS has the widest selection of cloud services, including 48 services where comparable options are simply not available in any of the next large cloud provider. So greater reliability, this goes because of the 69 availability zones currently available across 22 regions, and 100% not to mention the land and our regions in the coming period. So the AWS Region AZ model has been recognized by a lot of industry analysts as the recommended approach for running enterprise applications. And when we're talking about Microsoft workloads, this falls under enterprise applications, which requires high availability. So and AWS provides 2 times more regions with multiple availability zones than again, the next cloud provider. So from a security perspective, strong security. AWS offers 210 security, compliance, and governance services and key features, which is about also again 40% more than 40 more than the next largest cloud provider. So we're talking about PCI, HIPAA, FedRAMP, GDPR. So there is a full list of uh, compliance that the AWS falls into. So not to mention the capabilities of encryption, and they offer encryption across 116 AWS services, which is also 5 times more than the next cloud provider. Faster performance, that's a test has been done parties through DB, and it shows like 2 to 3 better performance with a similar machine sizes for database. Lower costs, that's the mindset of AWS. So we will like reflecting the cost reductions over the time, not to mention the price performance saving. And we will talk during our session about how you can optimize and how you can lower your cost using Microsoft workloads on AWS. Um, so I'm going to cover some of the services that if you are coming from a Microsoft workload background, that will be of an interest when you are moving to AWS. So I will just define it in a short summary before I deep dive to every section. So you will need, with any Microsoft workload, you will need the identity, which normally is directory, Active Directory, and then you will need the file sharing, and then you will need your application, and you will need your database. So 4 different layers. Beside this, you need to manage all of this, and you need to keep control of the licenses, and you need to administer and operate your workload. So we will see how AWS can cover all these in AWS Cloud. So let's first talk about the AWS Directory Service. If you don't know, AWS offers what we call AWS Directory Service for Microsoft Active Directory. So it's also known as AWS Managed Microsoft Active Directory, which enables you directly to have a fully managed, highly available cluster of Active Directory. Okay, it's built in actually on Microsoft Active Directory and does not require you to synchronize or replicate data from an existing directory to the cloud. You can still extend your on-prem or extend your Active Directory by building trusts. So it's a fully managed. It has 2 flavors: standard and enterprise, depends on the number of the users, and it has seamless integration with other AWS services like RDS. We will discuss what's RDS and SQL servers, or FSx, which will be used for file storage. So the next service is the Amazon FSx. Amazon FSx for Windows File Server is technically simply a lift and shift or your Windows file storage with a fully managed Windows file servers. So it's accessible over an industry standard server message block, which is SMB protocol. So if you want to put it in context, it's similar to EFS that we were discussing in the previous session, but this is for Windows, for SMB protocol. So it offers delivers a wide range of administrative features such as data deduplication, end user file restore, and Active Directory integration. And it offers single AZ and multi-AZ deployment options with a fully managed backups and encryption of data at rest and in transit. So with the hard disk drive also storage options, Amazon FSx for Windows offers you the lowest cost file storage in the cloud for Windows application and workloads. So you can access FSx from your Windows or even Linux or even your Mac, compute instances and devices running on AWS or on premises. You can always optimize the cost and performance with multiple storage options, and you can grow your file system storage and scale your performance at any time. So it's fast, flexible performance, and it offers a broad accessibility. The next layer of services is the SQL Server on AWS. So um, I've seen a lot of people think that SQL Server runs only in RDS or they have to do their own. So technically, you have both flavors. You can run SQL Server on RDS, which is the relational database service, or you can run it on top of EC2s with available AMI that AWS has SQL baked into those AMIs with licenses included, or you can bring your own license and build SQL on top. So AWS is ideal for supporting the lines of business applications, whether it's developed internally or whether it's a Microsoft Dynamics or either if it's a SAP application using also SQL. So it supports any of these applications. So the Microsoft SQL Server database that all these applications rely on, you can have the flexibility to run it as much as little time as needed with a pay per use also model. So if you want to maintain granular control over the configuration and management, you can run it on top of an EC2, or you can use a relational database service. So again, we will explain more about licensing constraints because there are different aspects for licensing. So the idea is, to summarize, you can have a license included model and you can bring your own license. There are some constraints that I will come to during this presentation. So let me highlight some of the important SQL features available. Actually, there is a service called AWS Launch Wizard. I mean, I see this is a very interesting tool available, but not very highly covered, or I mean, I've not seen people using it. So this will help you simplify provisioning of your SQL EC2s, building your hybrid cluster with an always-on availability option, building your network, integrating with the directories and building the whole setup for you. So it facilitates faster deployments, eliminate the time that you take to investigate how to provision and configure your application on AWS. And it has a built-in instance selection and customization also, so you can meet your application requirements with the best instance type, EBS volumes, or other resources that AWS Launch Wizard determines for you. And it's reusable as an automated template, so you can deploy subsequent application with a custom CloudFormation created by AWS Launch Wizard. So let me just pause and show you this Launch Wizard in action just to break this session. So I'm gonna jump to my uh, um, browser, and let me try to share my screen again. Okay. Uh, do you see now my browser?
Uh, yes, now we can see it, Ali.
It's the console, right? The AWS console. So
Yes,
this
yes.
is very interesting um, service or feature, let's say. It's called Launch Wizard. It can help you automate deployment of enterprise applications. Currently, it supports those three, whether you're deploying Microsoft SQL Server or SAP or only Active Directory cluster. We're talking now not about serverless or managed service. We're talking about running those workloads on EC2 instances, but with the best practice that AWS recommend. So if I select Microsoft SQL Server, I can go to create deployment, and the first time you use the service, it will automatically create an IAM role. So I'm gonna go next. What type of operating system you want to run? As you know, we will talk about this also later. You can run SQL on Linux, but I'll keep it as Windows. Am I deploying a highly available deployment with multiple AZs, or it's a single instance deployment? What's the name? Let's call it demo, and I can option create some notification. Once my deployment is finished, I can get notified through SNS, enable CloudWatch application monitorings also, and then this is the connectivity, how you're gonna access your servers. You just need to select some key pair so you can access your instances, and tenancy model, whether it's a shared or dedicated host. Now this is the VPC. Do you want to create a new VPC network setup or set it in the existing? So I just choose existing for now. And then what's the public subnet? Choose your zones. So it's very super interesting. And with every zone, which subnet you want to utilize, because I'm running a highly available deployment. So then it will automatically open your IP only unless you want to customize for remote access, because by default it's blocked. I confirm this is my IP. Then I can choose whether I want to create a new Active Directory or I want to connect to some existing AWS managed directory. So if you want to create a new one, then we can select from AWS managed or even on premises if for an existing. So you can create a new one, and you just need to add your admin password that you need to for this domain, and select your sample domain. Then you need to create some service accounts in your directory, because to finish the setup. And at the end, you have to select whether you are running license included AMI or you are using your custom AMI. If you select license included AMI, then the licenses will be included. You don't have to worry. If you're using your custom AMI, you might need to implement or deploy your own licenses. And then we can see, I'm zooming, I'm not sure if, okay, it doesn't work, so it's fine. So you have a variety of selection with license included. Even 2019, which was released 1 week after Microsoft release. So you can see that AWS is very fast and keen to be up to date with all the Microsoft workloads. So that's it. Once you launch, I'm not going to launch, this will take more or less for 2 hours to finalize. The nice thing about this, it will generate a cloud formation for you, which you can use as a template. And you can adjust that template, and you can run it for any future deployment. Okay, so that's what I wanted to demo and highlight. Any questions so far? Okay, let me go back to my slides. Okay, can see the screen again?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, cool. So one of the very important cost saving, it's a design concept which can save you half of the licenses you're paying for SQL Server. How is this? When you are building your SQL infrastructure, technically you are looking for, if it's running an enterprise application, you need to have high availability with disaster recovery planning for that. So normally you will need a cluster of 2 servers running your SQL Server, and those 2 clusters works in a high availability mode. And then miles away, you will create a DR within a another data center, or so this the distance between this will not allow for synchronous replication. So you will be in a high latency mode and you will have asynchronous replication. So technically you have to pay for two licenses for your SQL. Okay, one with the high availability where you can benefit from one, and one at the other end which is running. So with AWS design of multi-AZ architecture, you can achieve high availability NDR with half the licenses. That means you need only one license for AWS RDS if you are running, or even within, not even if you're running it on top of EC2. So this is a very important design aspect. When you're moving from on-prem to AWS, you can save half the license cost by utilizing the multi-AZ strategy. Okay, so one another very important aspect also, AWS offers something called optimized CPU. So maybe you need to run R5 to X large for your application, but because of the memory requirement of your database, not because of the CPU. And as you know that the licenses are bound for CPU cores. So if I am running R5 to X large and I'm having like 8 cores of CPU, but actually I've selected R5 to X large because I need like 32 gig of memory. Okay, so but I really don't need the 8 cores. So this option of optimized CPU, you can limit the number of cores for your CPU, but still use the compute power and the memory. And by this, you can save, again, maybe half of your licensing. So you will still be running R5 to X large server and benefit of the 32 gig of memory, but you are limiting the 4-core license for your instance rather than the 8-core. And this you can achieve like 40% savings by utilizing this kind of optimized CPU. So very important feature when you are migrating, or even if you are now an existing customer, look at this because most of customers over provision their servers or their needs on-prem, but you have the full flexibility when you are on AWS. So from a operation perspective, you have your Microsoft workloads running, but you need to operate. You are used for different tools, maybe Service Manager, wherever it is. So once you move those workloads on AWS, System Manager can offer you a full set of capabilities that enable automated configuration, ongoing management of your systems at scale and across all your Windows, even Linux and workloads on-prem. So what does it really do? So System Managers is a management service that will help you automatically collect software inventory, apply OS patches, create system images, configure Windows and Linux operating system. And these capabilities will help you define and track the system configuration and will prevent drift and maintain software compliance on your Amazon EC2 or even on your on-prem configuration. So by providing a management approach that is designed for the scale and the agility of the cloud, but also can extend your on-prem data center. So AWS Systems Manager makes it easier for you to seamlessly bridge your existing infrastructure with AWS. So let's move to our next section, which is Microsoft licensing on AWS. So there is AWS License Manager. Uh, it's easier to manage your software licenses from software vendors, whether it's Microsoft, SAP, Oracle, IBM, or even on-prem environments. You can manage them all from AWS License Manager. It allows you to administer, create customized licensing rules that emulate the terms of their licensing agreements, and then will enforce these rules when an instance of an EC2, let's say, gets launched. So administrators can use these rules to help prevent licensing violations. such as using more licenses than an agreement stipulates. Okay, so you can easily manage and you're getting single view of your licensing, you're adding on top some control and you are in compliance. But the best thing of all, this service is for free. Okay, so very important and cool service, especially when you are migrating and you kind of still in a hybrid mode. So this will facilitate license management across all your deployments. Now, licensing for Microsoft can be either or. But I will mention kind of some restrictions now because of Microsoft AWS agreements. So you can buy licenses from AWS. Using license including instances will allow you to access a fully compliant Microsoft software license bundled with EC2 or Amazon RDS instances, and the ability to pay for them as you go with no upfront costs or long-term investments. So for Amazon EC2, you can choose uh, from the AMIs with just Microsoft Windows Server, or you can select a Microsoft Windows Server and Microsoft SQL pre-installed. Okay, this is a license included already from the AMIs. So RDS for SQL Server is a license included now, unless you had a software assurance that you had bought previous to October 1st of 2019, you cannot bring your own license to RDS. This is kind of the, I think for RDS, it was June 30. For the Windows servers, it was like October 2019. So technically, beyond this date, you cannot by any means bring your own licenses to RDS. But we will talk about another approach. So keep this in mind. Now, to understand better what's the bring your own license with a dedicated host, I need to just recap on the different types of EC2 instances that AWS offers. So AWS offers a shared tenancy, which is everyone knows the EC2s that you buy on demand or you reserve, whatever it is. So this is a multi-tenant server hosting. So the same physical server can host multiple accounts, but isolated through the hypervisor. So, and AWS will select randomly which host your instance will be there, and you're paying for the instance that you and the time you're consuming this compute. The other option is dedicated instances. With dedicated instances, you want your instance to be running on a dedicated physical host, but you don't care which host it is. So AWS will run it on any available host, but this host will never host any EC2 instance from any other account. This is called a dedicated instance. So pricing also is different. So for the dedicated instance, you will be paying $2 per hour per region because you are allocating the whole instance. There is another option which is called dedicated host. The dedicated host is a physically allocated host for your account that you can use and you can place your EC2 instances. So why dedicated host? Because it, it's your own. There is no OS included. You are paying for the host and you can run your EC2s and bring your own AMIs with your own Windows licenses and any other Microsoft licenses that you need. So this is an option where a lot of enterprises has also gained from existing CapEx or even saved by moving to this model. It's very important if you have like a massive migration to look into how you can better optimize licenses on AWS. Because if you're running like hundreds of Windows instances, you can easily avoid, and you already had some existing enterprise agreement or licenses that have not expired yet, so you can utilize the dedicated host benefits. From a SQL licensing perspective, I again say that you can have options, but the option of software assurance and mobility, you should look into the specific date of the existing agreement with Microsoft, but you can deploy with RDS with license included and pay as you go. Or again, you can run your SQL on a dedicated host and you can bring again your own license. So the nice thing about AWS that it facilitates the ease of migration and the tools available. So I'm going to cover some of the existing tools and programs that really help you in your journey towards running your Microsoft workloads. First of all, I'm going to talk about hola, or optimization and licensing assessment. So hola is a program available, and there is a tool that AWS offers so you can discover your existing infrastructure with the licenses requirement, and it can generate a total cost of ownership from this analysis, so you can see it can help you take decisions in the migration easily. So hola is a program. AWS can provide the tooling for discovery of the infrastructure and the licensing of the applications. So, and it will generate a business case where there is an advice for how you can optimize better licensing when you migrate to AWS. So why Ola? 58% higher win rate. This could be if you are a partner or if you are an IT executive or director trying to get the buy-in from your executives in the company. So you can show them this Ola or this report. I will share with you a sample report so you can understand what I'm talking about, and it will facilitate your migration efforts. So once you have this Ola, you know the status quo. So today, I don't know, I have like 2-3 data centers with so many servers. We've purchased licenses, we have SQL, our developers are running something, our production, we have different application teams. So yes, it's a mess for IT people to collect and see where do we stand, especially if it's an old company or like a big enterprise with 20, 30 years of IT expenditures. So this will give you a better view and will facilitate your migrations. On average, you will save 62% because Ola do a mapping for your instances, right-sizing, optimization for the licensing, and application interdependencies. And what's nice about Ola, there is no cost on the customer. So whether it's through partner or whether directly through AWS, so there is no cost on the customer. So let me show you a sample of Ola. I'm not sure if you can still see my screen. Yeah. So AWS acquired a company called TSO Logic, and now they call the solution migration evaluator. So technically, it's a solution migration evaluator. You can see, right, my screen?
Yes, yes, Ali, we can see your screen.
The business case summary. So this is just a dummy sample where you can see that after running this Ola program, you can have all this discovery on premises versus AWS, what's the total savings you will get, and data insights, how many SQL Server you're running, how many zombies machines, standard edition Windows servers, Linux servers, and then it will give you kind of a recommendation how you can better select and match the migration strategy, how you can reduce further by saving plans or by moving to dedicated option wherever it is. So I'm just trying to highlight that there are so many tools, programs, services that can help us in the migration and in deploying Windows workloads on AWS. Um, okay, so another very interesting program, which is the end of life migration program, it's EMP. With SQL Server 2008 and 2009, 2008 are two which were like end of support since July and 2019, and even Windows Server 2008, which was also end of support in July 2020. We still see like 50 to 60% of on-premises Microsoft workloads running 2008. And no new patches or any security updates, because this means you are exposed to any cyber attack and risk for non-compliance with regulatory bodies and new legislations. So because of this, AWS offers the EMP program. The EMP program, it's like literally you are moving your application workloads with some assurance that this will be a future proof for any legacy application, and you're reducing the risk because you're being compliant, and it will reduce the cost and the complexity to maintain old version. So technically there is a tool that with the AWS experts, you can run it on your old machines, and you can compile all the dependencies, check the registries, wherever it will do everything that can make your application run on the latest Windows machines. So if you're still running on even 2003, maybe running SQL 2000, and you're not willing to modernize now, but I need to finish my migration, it will package all of this. It's called the EMP technology, which will decouple the application and the underlying OS, which will enable you to run your old application on new Windows machines. It's called EMP, End of Life Migration Program. Very interesting. So some of the migration tools and services I would like to highlight here, it's not limited to, but I'm trying. So I created those slides before AWS announced the new service yesterday or the day before, which is like the application migration service, which it was part of their Cloud Endure acquisition, I think, and now they are embedding it in the console. So Cloud Endure helps you in the migration for your machine. It's an agent-based, which will do a block level replication, and you can simply and easily migrate your applications to AWS. There are other tools like SMS Server Migration Service, Database Migration Service, which helps you also migrate your databases and your servers to AWS. With the Database Migration Service, you have also the capability to do what we call a heterogeneous migration using the schema conversion tool. If you are moving, let's say, from MS SQL to Aurora, or even from Oracle to MySQL, whatever it is, you can use this database migration service with the schema conversion tool. The migration evaluator is the tool that we use for the discovery phase. I mentioned, which is part of the OLA. Okay, it has been also renamed as a migration evaluator. Formerly, it was TSO Logic. So after we migrated, we know how to operate, we know how to migrate, we know what are the services. Now it's time to look into how we can modernize. What's modernization? Modernization is the process of progressively transforming legacy applications and infrastructure to take advantage of the cloud economics, which is like saving cost. You don't want to just move some boxes and stay using you're just paying more, let's say, on servers. So we want to utilize the cloud and save on the cost. Why did we move to the cloud? Because we want to modernize. That's the ultimate cause of moving to the cloud. And being cloud native, accelerating your innovation by adding new services, and you need to increase your profitability by reaching different markets or launching new products or releasing services faster, right? And enhancing your user experience. But best of all is you want to get out of some licensing, because licenses keep changing and you are paying for licenses. What if I can go out from commercial model to something like open source or something modernized? So this is when we say modernization, we mean all these 6 pillars. This is a sample of a Microsoft workload, how you can modernize. Okay, we're not deep diving. I'm just giving you an overview about how to think. What does it mean modernizing? So you can relocate or rehost your Windows machines to the cloud, and you can benefit from the SQL cost optimization, from the pay as you go on demand by right sizing. And this is where you can achieve some of the cost savings. But then we look into replatforming. Replatforming, this means like containerizing our application, where you can develop and deploy faster, where you can have application portability. So you don't, once you move into microservice model, so there will be no code changes when you are moving across your infrastructure. So this is kind of replatforming, or moving from the SQL on EC2 to RDS, using SQL on RDS. This is also kind of replatforming, moving towards the self-service and managed service, removing the heavy lifting of the IT management of your database, automated backup, automated patching, automated high availability, automated failover. So all of these can be, you can benefit from these services when moving to a replatforming to RDS. Now, moving to refactoring, which you can move to open source, which is a more time consuming, and it needs more of a learning curve to understand how to move from one technology to another. But on the long run, you are saving on cost and you are freeing yourself from licensing, whether it's moving from .NET to .NET Core, and whether you are moving from MS SQL to Aurora, or moving to DynamoDB, or even from any other data warehousing to Redshift, freeing yourself from licensing and getting the advantage of being on the cloud. So these are the kind of a strategy, overall strategy, how to think, how I can move to the cloud and modernize. So it's 3 stages. It's assess, so you have to assess your environment, and then you have to start mobilizing by planning, by discovering dependencies, and then you migrate. After you migrate, you have to modernize. So SQL Server for Linux, this is a very interesting also topic where you can move your SQL servers to AWS, but instead of Windows machines, you can run them on Linux, and AWS support that. And there is a tool called Windows to Linux Replatforming Assistant for Microsoft SQL. It's actually more of a script. It's publicly available. If you just look for this script, and you can achieve at least 20% of cost saving, because you're not paying for the Windows licenses underneath. So again, another interesting tool for modernization is app2container. It's also available by AWS. It's a command line tool for modernizing .NET and Java applications into containerized applications. So A to C will analyze and build an inventory of all applications running in virtual machines on-prem or in the cloud, and you simply select the application you want to containerize. And A to C will package the application artifact and identify dependencies into container images, and then configure the network ports and generate the ECS tasks or the Kubernetes pod definitions. So A2C provisions through CloudFormation the CI/CD pipeline required to deploy the containerized .NET or Java application into production. So I would advise, if you're interested, look it up and try it. So by this, I come to the end of my presentation, and thank you. If you have some questions, I'm also available to answer your questions.